Hello YouTubers. I guess this video is sort of a PS to the one I just released. In that video I was talking about supernatural encounters. All of those were positive, and I thought afterwards I have had other encounters that were not so positive. I just wanted to tell you about this one. The main thing about this one is because another person validated it. This was back in the early 80s. I don't exactly remember what year. It was when Edward was on television. He had his big hit show at the time called All Night Live. Now the reason why that's significant is because I had asked Edward to show a picture one night of a friend of mine. It was a little treat. And this friend is the person who validated this experience. One night this person had come over to visit. This was sometime in the early 80s. As a matter of fact, I was living in that same apartment that I was telling you about, where the biker guy had lived downstairs. I don't remember exactly how long I lived there, maybe a year. I can't quite remember what year it was. I know Ed was on TV from 81 to 85, so I'm thinking this was probably around 83. Anyhow, the friend had come over to visit and left, and I escorted him down the stairs because I told you I lived on the top. There was and the stairwell was on the outside of the building. And how do I explain this? It was like door, then there was a stairwell. Underneath the door, underneath the stairwell, it was just like a blank area, and then the neighbor's door. So it kind of made like a triangle shape. Like all of a sudden I can't make a triangle, but it's kind of triangular shaped. Anyhow, so I walked my friend down the stairs, and we were in the parking lot there saying goodnight and talking about something, and I saw something under the stairwell. I did not say a word, because I honestly thought I was the only one who saw it. I kept it to myself. Well, after my friend got home, he called me up and he said, "I don't mean to scare you, but there was a demon hiding under your stairs." I said, "I know, I saw it." Yes, there was a black, ugly demon crouching underneath the stairwell. Now, I just want to clarify, it wasn't like a person that we were mistaking. Maybe someone was like, no. If you had seen the setup, the stairwell, the stairs were narrow. There was no like big area to hide in or anything like that. We were just a few feet away from the stairwell. It would be like somebody standing on the other side of my living room and trying to pretend they're not there. They're obviously there. I can obviously see them, you know what I mean? That's how close it was. It wasn't a person. It was a demon, and it was crouched under the stairwell. And not only did I see it, but my friend also saw it, so I knew I wasn't imagining things. Now, I didn't like it. It kind of gave me the ickies. I wasn't overly afraid because some reason I knew I was protected from it. Why it was there, I can only imagine. And I don't remember exactly. I went inside and prayed about it. That's it. So I just thought I'd share that because unfortunately, I guess if you're blessed to see the good things in the spirit world, sometimes you have to see the bad things as well. There was another time, and actually someone validated that too. I knew somebody else and they were a very dark person. There was something I sensed in the house. A demonic presence. Now this person, unfortunately, was a church-going person, or at least they put on a pretense of being a Christian person, but in truth they hung around with dark people, Satan worshippers, actually. Not all of them, but yeah, anyhow, there was a demonic presence over the house, and a lady who's a very pure spirit had come over to visit one night, and she told me that there was a demonic cloud hanging over the house. I knew that. I sensed that. You know, there's more. There's something that I had posted recently on my Facebook. I felt impressed that it was the time to tell this as well. Now, this was not a lifelong secret. It's just been a secret since January. But Ed, or a higher source, I don't know, I was impressed to tell what happened on the day that Ed died. I may as well put it in this video too. There ain't no point keeping this stuff secret anymore. It's all out there now. I revealed something on my Facebook page that I felt led to. Ed wanted me to. It was something that happened the day he died. When I posted the announcement of his death, I said something in that video. I said that he had given me what I needed before he died, and someday I might explain it. Well, afterwards, I told a couple of people what happened, and they obviously didn't believe me. They blew it off. And I decided at that point I was never going to tell anyone what happened. And then all of a sudden I felt impressed. No, you need to tell what happened. I've had fans asking me, you know, since that initial video presentation, are you ever going to tell us what happened, what you meant? Well, I guess now I will. First I want to tell you something about the last weeks when Ed died. You know by now that I saw him on Christmas Day, and afterwards, when I was driving back home, all of a sudden I realized I didn't sing Christmas carols to him, and I started crying. I cried my whole way home because it was his last Christmas. I wanted so much to sing Christmas carols to him, and I totally forgot. And then a week later was New Year's, and I went to see him, but he had taken a real turn for the worse, and I didn't get to see him. You may remember that. I drove all the way up there, and they actually brought him all the way down. And then they determined, he was right on the other side of the door of the visitation room, and they said, no, they're not going to let him in. He was too sick. And I couldn't see him at that particular day because of a technical glitch. Up till that point, Ed was being brought into the visitation room with everyone else. And once he got too sick, then I would be allowed to go inside the prison to be with him. But they had to change his housing status first to make it allowable, and it hadn't been changed that day, and they couldn't just do it that day. So they had to send me away, and then I come back next weekend. So I never got to saw him that day. And the fact that he was that sick that he couldn't come in obviously frightened me. I told them to tell Edward that I loved him and that I would be back next weekend. And he hung on for me for one more week. And when I saw him the following weekend, which was on January 8th, I could see that he was suffering. Up to that point, you know, he had told me that he really wasn't in any pain or anything. You know, he was having trouble talking and swallowing, and, you know, he was like choking a little bit and stuff, but, you know, he said he wasn't suffering that much, but all of a sudden now I could see that he was suffering. And I just held him, and he laid his head on my shoulder, and I whispered in his ear, and I said to him, "It's time to go home. Just go home." I told him, "Don't you worry about me. I'll be okay. You just go home now." And so I spent our last day together holding him. I was only allowed to see him for 2 hours because he was so sick. Even before that, he was, you know, he had restricted visitation. I believe, the only one who was allowed to see him at that point. But once it got to the point where they brought me on the inside, then there was a 2-hour limit. And yeah, so I held him and I sang to him. You know what I sang to him because I made a video about it. Anyhow, so that touched me a lot that he hung on that last week just so we could be together one more time. And then I told him to go home, and shortly after I left, he did. Anyhow, after I left him, I was driving home. And this is the secret. Edward appeared on the passenger seat of the van, and it was so totally normal for some reason, even though he did not look like himself anymore. He was young again. And I remember noticing that and thinking, "You're young again." He was like in his prime. And I remember thinking that well, this kind of stood out to me because I never thought of Ed anymore as he was when he was younger, because he was older now, and the way he was now was the way I thought of him. I thought of him constantly, every day, of course, you know, I thought of him, but he was always old, just exactly the way he was now. Not only old, but, you know, now he was sick. So that's how I thought of him. And all of a sudden, here was this young, healthy man sitting in my passenger seat. And it was sort of strange because I could see him, but I could also see through him. If that makes any sense. It was almost as if, I don't know, he was made out of I won't say a cloud or water. I don't know, I can't explain it, you know, but he was sort of transparent. And he held my hand. Now, I told you that night there was a full moon. The full moon was shining in the driver's side window, and we sat there like that for about 15 minutes holding hands and talking about the moon, and it just seemed like totally normal to me. And I had to drive at one point, so I pulled my hand away and I felt him hold on to it like he didn't want to let go. And then after that he faded away. Now the next day, I never got a phone call that he had died, and I thought, okay, I must have been hallucinating that. You know, because the only way it would appear to me in the passenger seat, I would think, would be that if he had died. And so then I thought, okay, I'm wrong. I was wrong. I made it all up. I hallucinated it. He obviously didn't die. Well, that night after I got home is when I found out he did indeed die after I left. They called me. They dialed the wrong number. Wow. There's only one thing that puzzles me about that night. When I collected his things from the prison, it said right on there, he expired at such and such a time. He appeared to me 2 hours before that. This is what I don't understand. The only thing I can think of is his spirit was either already slipping in and out of his body, or he did indeed die when he came to see me and they did not discover it for 2 hours and wanted to cover their tracks or whatever. Mind you, this was the prison system. It's not like he died in the hospital. This was the prison. I don't know what to think. But that's what I meant when I said that he gave me what I needed before he died. Or after he died. Whatever. Then when he died. He came to me to say goodbye. And that floors me a lot because I meant that much to him that he came to see me before he left. And he's never stopped showing me his love since that day. I mean, he already, you know, showed me his love all the time on Earth, but now there was nothing between us. You know what I mean? I didn't have to wait to see him on the weekends, a visitation, or wait for him to call me, or wait, you know, for a letter or anything like that. The veil was gone, you know. Well, I mean, there is a veil between us, a very thin veil. I'm here, he's over there. But it's sort of funny because it's like he's always here now. I can't explain it, you know. There's no more that the obstacles though that there was when he was in prison. Anyhow, so yeah, if he had never come back, and when I made that video, that was the only supernatural encounter I'd had with him up to that point. I did not expect to see him again. And if that had been the sum of it, that still would have been enough to carry me through the rest of my life, simply because that one act alone told me volumes about how much he loved me. But he continues to show me his love all the time, and I'm glad. I am glad because it still has hit me harder than I ever thought. I miss him terribly. I would cut off my foot just for a chance to hold him again. I love him and I miss him, and he knows that, apparently, because every time I need him, he's there for me still. It's the craziest thing. I know sometimes I share things with you, you know, I'll say, oh, I was crying for Edward today or something. There's a lot of things I don't share with you. There are things that only Edward knows, and he'll do something afterward to make his presence known, he'll even use other people to say things to me that fit exactly what I was talking to him about earlier. I can't explain it. I can't explain it. But there are things that only Edward knows, and he has answered them every time. It just blows me away. Blows me away. Nobody's ever loved me like that before. Well, nobody's ever loved me, period. And then I have that to live with for the rest of my life until I can see him again. It's amazing, because the only love that I've ever felt on this earth has been from Edward. Anyhow, I just wanted to finally share with you what it was I meant that night when I made that video. So, to those of you who don't believe in a spiritual world beyond this one, it's out there. It's real. It's nothing to be scared of if you just follow the light, which is God. So, but